And we are live. And today I'm here with an amazing guest, Katie Rössler. And I'm so excited about today's live because we are going to talk a lot about consistency, the importance of staying consistent, but also how to. There is an old comment who pops up every time I go live. I need to remove that one from StreamYard. Anyways, how to stay consistent even when life turns busy. And as Katie is an experienced therapist and relationship coach, we are going to look into how to build a business, a solopreneurship business, or whatever you want to call it, and at the same time, build on your relationship, because we need to build both of these things. So if you're watching my channel for the first time, my name is Josephine Warner, and I help coaches and service providers to become visible on LinkedIn mainly. And Katie, now it's you to introduce yourself. So let us know a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I am Katie Rössler. I am a licensed professional counselor from the United States, but I have, as of today, lived in Munich, Germany for 9 years. So it's our birthday of living here in a sense. And the work that I do is with high achieving couples. Many are business owners or a C-suite level, and they're looking at how do we rebuild our relationship after 10 plus years of being together and kind of reignite things. Many are in that stage of should I stay or should I go? And really assessing and evaluating what they want for the next decade of their lives. So I really love working with this community, but a lot of my history as well is working in the grief space, and which falls a lot into how do you keep your business going when real life hits, basically. My own experience in the 9 years we've lived here, I have lost two grandfathers, my mother 6 years ago, and had two miscarriages. And all of that, now I'm raising three kids, running a business, and my husband is an entrepreneur too. So this topic is near and dear to my heart. And I will be, as you shared, weaving in how do we also strengthen our relationship as our business is, going through its own evolution as life gets busy, as there's problems in our relationship, because as you know, it impacts our confidence, it impacts how we show up. And then kind of looking at how maybe we can evaluate how we understand consistency. Because I don't know about you, but I find out people are like, oh, you seem like you're doing so much and you're so busy and I always see your stuff. And I think there's just really some smart ways that we can run our business so it shows that way, but it isn't that we feel that way.
Oh, I absolutely agree to this. I hear that too a lot, that I see you everywhere. And my business partner, Angela, and Angela is also here, by the way, so she says hi. We have actually created a word called everywhereness. The feeling that you give others that we are actually everywhere, but we aren't everywhere. We're not posting 24/7, because
Yeah.
if we would do that, we wouldn't have a life or a business that we really wanted to live. And I really, when you spoke, I think we have so many commonalities, Katie. I too lost my father, and that was what really kicked off my journey. I had been thinking for a long time, or a couple of years at least. Should I, shouldn't I? Should I start a business? Shouldn't I start a business? What else should I do? And then when that hit, when I realized that my father passed away within 6 weeks after he learned that he had cancer. It took 6 weeks until we lost him. And I think that we can't just wait for the moment to really start living the life that we want to live. And I had been in a very toxic environment before that, and then that really kicked off my journey. And at the same time, my husband had actually started, he's also an entrepreneur, so he had also started his journey a year before me. And I started a little bit becoming resented him. And I think that either we grow apart or we grow together. And it was really important that I actually kicked off my journey too, my personal development journey and my business journey too. But you are the specialist here. So what do you think? And I feel that, when we maybe reach our 40s, mid 40s, something like that we start to realize that this is really life. We need to start living it. But what are your experience about, couples and living together or living apart or starting businesses? What can you share about
Yeah.
that?
I think the 40s is actually a perfect time. A lot of people are like, oh, the 40s, like the 30s are the best. Or, even I see like people all about the 50s, and the 40s feels like it gets this bad rep. I find in our 40s, it's a beautiful time of really beginning to like, okay, let me look at what I've done for the last however many years. And what do I want to be doing? It's exactly what you said. Like, do I have to wait till someone dies or something bad happens? I get let go of in my job or something occurs for me to finally live what I want to be living. And I'm all about the word legacy.
Mm,
And honestly, when my mom died, I started thinking about that word because, of course, people think of a legacy after they died, but everybody talks about the stories of them when they were alive. And I was like, oh, you know what? Legacy is not built later on. It's actually built right now. And that really started to challenge me. How do I want to show up in my life, in my work, in my relationship? And then I took it a step further. And in the couples that I work with, because of the work they do, they have such an impact on other people. That relationship work is actually legacy work for them, because if they work on their relationship, they model for others that it is hard work. And we don't talk about what hard work it was. So maybe we could talk about that later, but we don't always talk about what it means by a relationship is hard work. That it is about really being intentional and not on autopilot. And frankly, that's how we should be running our businesses, is showing up in a consistency that feels authentic to us, really being able to be dedicated to the goals that we have and see them through and then evolve as things might need to shift. That's all relationships as well. So I really think our 40s, it's a big time where a lot of people change careers, reevaluate and go into entrepreneurship, take sabbaticals, right? In our 40s and 50s, you see a lot of people taking a sabbatical. And then you do see a lot of people get divorced during this time. And there's some big reasons why that happens. A lot of statistics out there about this, but I just see it as this beautiful time of like us kind of cocooning in. It doesn't mean you're not doing things, but cocooning and going, let me like bring in all the information and all the life lessons and like now start to create that visionary life, that legacy life that I know I can create. How does my business play a role in that? Rather
mm.
than my business is the legacy, how does it play a role in I am the legacy? And it just helps me get that message out.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, I really love the legacy piece, and maybe it has become a little bit of a, I'm building my business, I'm creating a legacy, but exactly like you say, we're actually doing this now and not to wait
Mhm.
for it. I have a friend, for example, who says, "Oh, I'm so glad it's only 10 years until my retirement." And I was like, "Oh my God, how can you even think like that?" Because let's start live now, because you
Yeah.
never know how much time you will have afterwards, right? But
Yes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your podcast, Katie. Because you're the host of the Relationship Reset podcast. And I think that, when I quit my corporate job, one of the dreams I had was that I would want to start a podcast. But then,
Mhm.
we build up all of these things. So I need to have all this in place. I need to have all that in place. And now with this live show that I'm doing, it's not really a podcast, but it's kind of like halfway to a podcast. What kind of, if we start with, what encouraged you to kickstart or kick off your podcast, because you also celebrated 2 years of it, which is amazing, right? So what kind of, and what challenges have you faced throughout the
Mm.
podcast, and what types of guests have you had? And I'd really like to dive a little bit deeper into your podcast.
Yeah. So for me, my podcast is how I show up consistently. It's every
Mm,
week. That is
mm,
the way that I am there. And there's a graphic every week of something I've created in a blog post, right? Um, I started it. I actually had the idea of starting one years ago, especially it's prior to COVID. I was like, I really want to start a podcast. And at that time, the work I was doing was a lot around stay-at-home parents and working parents, about work-life balance and understanding how we can manage our homes and our families a bit like a business, so that we can really cultivate healthier relationships, not like a business. And at that time, I was like, okay, I've got to do this. And some of you have had this experience. You share with your partner this exciting idea you have, and you're like, all in. This is what I'm going to do. I've done all the research. I know the microphone, I know the camera, I know the things. And they're like, nah, I don't think that's a good idea. And you're like, why not? Deflated balloon. So I chose not to back then, and I say that I chose because I did. I chose not to back then. And then I started doing these really great summits online where it was like 5 days of different speakers, and I was like, "Why am I not doing a podcast?" So, within 5 weeks, like, I was having that going, and then 5 weeks later, I started my podcast because I was like, "Forget it." Like, I had already done all the research years prior. Perfectionism's not one of my things. I'm just like, "Go in, let's just jump." And it has been an amazing ride. It started out, it's called the Balance Code. Then it became the Balance Code for High Achievers because it really is those of us who are like very goal driven and how do we create better balance in our lives. And then as my work evolved to refocus again on couples, because my background is marriage and family therapy, I was like, let me just, all these people who are already mainly in relationships, move it into relationship reset and be about practical tools, like 12 to 15-minute episodes, real practical, real focused, and then with some interviews. Now, the interviews I've done when it was the Balance Code, I loved. And I'm interviewing people now with the Relationship Reset podcast too. It's been amazing to network with other people. And I highly recommend it as a great way to connect with others, to learn about different fields. And also, your community, though they trust you and want to hear from you, sometimes they also want to hear from the people you trust. And so being able to meet new speakers and experts and really listen to them and go, yeah, this is going to be important for my community to hear, I really found was helpful. I will say as a podcast growth strategy, I did not find that it helped that much. But as hey, let me bring some resources to the community I already have, super helpful. You hear back from the community like, gosh, I really needed to hear that. I needed this piece of information and things like that. That was really amazing. The challenges I have faced have been very much around, do you keep the podcast or not? Because it is work and it is
Mm,
time and energy. And even though you might outsource editing, it's finding the right editor and like making
mhm.
sure that person can be consistent. So it's things like that where you have to really sit back and say, does this make sense as a strategy in my business? And as I said, this is my nurture strategy. This is me, how I show up consistently. I have clients who listen to the episodes and come to session with the homework from those episodes because every episode has a little homework at the end. And I'm like, great, that wasn't for you, but perfect. I'm glad you did it. So like for me, that's been really important is to just have a space where I'm going to show up consistently. I can really drive traffic to it to come and pay attention. Like we had an episode 2 weeks ago on perimenopause in your relationship. And I interviewed a guest expert and it blew up amazingly because it's a topic more and more people needed to listen to and to talk about. Again, my audience is really in the 40s and 50s, and they need to hear what's normal right now, what's natural, what so many of us are going through, and how to be better support in our relationship through that phase. So I have loved having the podcast. As you know, I posted, man, I totally missed the 2-year mark of the podcast because I'm just in it. Like, I'm like, okay, next week's episode and next week's episode. So once you get in the rhythm and you're doing it, it just happens. But you do face how will this podcast evolve with me? And where do I want to take it to the next level? And you can get caught up in the details. Do I make it a long podcast episode? Do I make it short? Do I have guests? Do I not? Don't overthink it. Just go. And then if you find a guest you like, interview them. And like you grow as it grows and vice versa.
Yeah, and you know what I really like too that you said, well, when I started it was a different podcast. It was called The Balance Code, and then it was the Balance Code for High Achievers, and now it's the Relationship Reset. And I think that is so important to remember that nothing what we do is actually set in stone. We
Yeah.
can kick it off, we can start it. The importance is to actually just do it, right? Because if we don't do it, if we start to overthink it, oh, should the thumbnail look like this or should the thumbnail look like that? Oh, I don't have the right picture. I need to do a photo shooting first. You don't need to do a photo shooting, right?
No.
So things like that. It's to just start and to not be afraid of actually pivoting or changing niche or changing direction, because I think we also, when we do what we do, we also connect with others, exactly like you said, and we'll learn about so many new things that we wouldn't even have known if we hadn't started these things. And that might
Right.
change our direction too. So
Completely.
I really like this. So we have a couple of comments here. Let me just quickly bring them out. We have Angela who confirmed the word everywhereness, which is uh, where we want people to feel as if we are, to stand, be on top of people's minds. So you want to feel as if you are everywhere. Doesn't mean that you are everywhere, right? And then we
Totally.
have Elizabeth who's here with us today. So hi, Elizabeth. It is so
Hello.
lovely to have you here. So if you are watching this now, make sure you add a comment here so we can bring it on. And then also, if you have a question,
Mhm.
ask the question. You now have Katie here, who's a relationship expert. If you feel a little bit kind of maybe don't want to add the comment so everyone can see it, then why don't you connect with Katie? She's both on LinkedIn, she's on Instagram, and she's so easy to actually find. It's katierössler.com, and you find her everywhere. So, but I will make sure that I add the links afterwards too. So, almost lost a little bit my just train of thought there. But I was thinking, you said, oh, then we get stuck in this, I need a podcast editor, or I need someone maybe to design my
Mhm.
thumbnails, or whatever it might be. I have done some bad hires in the past, right? So it can be really difficult to find the right person. So what do you think when it comes to hiring a team, or when should someone start hiring a team? When should someone start, and for what tasks do you think we should hire a team as a business owner?
Right, right. And this is such a difficult question because I think a lot of us jump on the hiring somebody quite fast, maybe even then before we're ready financially or before, because often we think, oh, we can just give it to that person, but you're not, you're managing someone. So you're going to give them a task, you're going to teach them how you want it done, or you'll be constantly correcting all the way through. And then after that, you're going to have to approve the things that they do. And there is a good about 3-month learning process for most hires that you'll have. That 3 months can feel like even more work on your shoulders. And you were thinking, oh, but this was supposed to make my life easier. It's the normal process. I mean, think about if you're managing anyone, they have to get to know you. You have to know how to get to know them. You have to, put appropriate boundaries. There's been times like where I've had a VA, and of course, they're sending on their schedule approvals, and you're like, I don't have time right now. But you feel this like, oh, this is when they're working, so I need to approve it now. That's not how that works, right? So it's like having good boundaries. And if you don't feel like you're really in that place where, yes, I'm ready to teach someone to do this, and I know exactly like my procedures, how I want them done, what needs to occur. I understand how to make sure they have access to all the things, because that's kind of half the battle sometimes. It's like, how do I get you access to this? And you're allowed to post, or you're allowed to, schedule these or email for me or things like that. These things, sit down and kind of write out what those are. I also love the activity of like writing out all the things you normally do in a week and really putting like a star by the things you really don't enjoy doing and someone else could effectively do, right? Like if it's something where you need to be showing up, like I don't really love to show up on video or audio. Okay, but it has to be from you. So are there ways to like adjust that versus, hey, I'd really like somebody contacting podcasts so that I can get on other people's audiences, or I would really love somebody to do the cold reach outs until it feels like a good connection, and then I will fill in. Well, you can hire someone else to do that. But again, you need to give them sort of the script that sounds like you, that you're comfortable with them sharing, or something that represents your brand. Because anyone who steps in, you can't just, here, take it over, I don't want to do it. That isn't the appropriate way to step into hiring,
Mm.
contract work or hiring somebody full-time in your business. These are pieces I had to learn the hard way, because in the beginning it was like, oh, good, you'll take care of my social media. And then there was like 101 questions. And I was like, no, you're supposed to just do this. Like, I don't need to answer all these questions. Like, no, actually you do. So when you bring that person on, expect it's like any relationship, right? You got to put work into it. You got to put clear boundaries, have really good communication. None of this people please, like you've hired them. No people pleasing, kindness, respect, but be honest and straightforward. Hey, I don't really like this. Can you approach this differently? Please stay consistent with what I've asked, whatever it might be. And then if you're like, wow, this mistake keeps happening, say, I'm sorry, this isn't working. And so I usually say a good 2 to 3 months trial period makes sense. And whether you write a contract up and you just state that after 3 months, we both will reevaluate and then come together and decide if this is permanent, partnership or not. But it is growing pains. It's kind of like when you go to a doctor and you're like, no, that's not the right one. You go check out another one. Like everybody always thinks you should go with the first one you go to or meet. That's not how it works. Get referrals, have recommendations. If you like using certain platforms to search for different type of work, that's great. But know that it will still not mean it's the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did one early hire because I had a business coach and she said, you have to be on Pinterest. And I'm never on Pinterest myself. I don't even know how it works.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I have to be on Pinterest. Okay, that sounds good. So I hired someone to manage my Pinterest for me. She created the visuals and everything. The thing was that I hadn't, described my ideal client properly. So she was using pictures of very young, happy couples because that was how she was. She had just, married and they had gotten a small child. And I was like, no, that's not my ideal clients. Mine are more like, divorcees or getting a divorce rather than, young, happy married couple. So exactly like you say, it has to be so much guidance around that. And we can't really just then say, and I was a little bit like a people pleaser. I was a little bit too kind in that direction. So I said, okay, so she can't do that, then I'll take it. Then she can do this other thing instead. And that didn't really work out either. So actually rather, kind of like let go of that person faster because we are not really doing them a service either, right? So
right.
I think that is so important to remember that this is our businesses. These are also our babies a little bit. And I think one thing that is super important, because now that I'm on YouTube or starting to, to build my YouTube channel, I get so many cold pitches about everything I do wrong and I should do this or I should do that. And I actually prefer knowing how to do the things before I outsource it to someone who actually knows it better than I do. But it's better I should never have been on Pinterest. That wasn't even part of the deal, for me, because I don't use it myself, right? So rather learn something, be passionate about it, and then we can outsource it. But exactly like you say, just because we know how to do something doesn't mean we have to do it ourselves, right? So I'm a former auditor. I don't do my own accounting, and I'm so happy that when my accountant does my accounting, right? So things like that actually take away energy, we should definitely outsource, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But not immediately. So what else would you like to add, Katie?
Yeah, I think we should definitely talk about how to keep your business going when real life hits, like when all the stressful times, like I know you're right now, you just posted today, like there's a lot going on all at one time. How do we stay consistent in our businesses and protect ourselves, protect our relationships in this phase? And I have to say, when my mom died at the end of 2018, and then in 2019, I had 2 miscarriages. I still don't know how I kept the business going back then, but I love this analogy. And this is the only thing I can think of that must have kept me going was when we are juggling all these balls, some of them are glass and some of them are rubber. And often as high achievers, we treat the rubber balls as glass because we think those are important. And some of the glass we treat as rubber, our relationships, our health, things like that, right? And all of a sudden, things in our business that we think like, God, I have to do this. This is so important, which are actually rubber. You can drop that Facebook group or community and just say, guys, I'm going to have to take a 3-month pause. I am here. I'll show up occasionally, but like, y'all keep it running and drop off and then come back. It's okay. Or if you have a podcast, take a pause. If you're working with clients, say, hey, I need to take a month off. Here's some homework for that month, reflection time, do this work, whatever, and then come back. But if we can start to assess like what's actually glass in our lives and what is actually rubber and what is glass in our business and what is rubber, then we have a better way of saying, well, how can I show up consistently for myself? How can I show up consistently in my relationship? And how can I show up consistently in my business? And it simplifies things a lot because there's not as many glass balls as you think. So when you're going through a really stressful time, let's say, it's a move, there's health issues, there's a death in the family, and then maybe somebody in your family is getting laid off, like all the things that are happening right now for many people. What do? You really sit down and go, what are the basics we have to do? Okay, we have to feed ourselves. We've got to get good sleep at night. That doesn't mean pull all-nighters to get the work done that you can't do during the day. Is there stuff you can outsource right now or delegate? And what is it? And make sure you've got a clear plan and just be like, I can't be more help than XYZ. So these are the things I need you to take over. And what are things, though, it will drive you insane, you've got to let go of. And just for a period of time. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to come back to that. And often when we come back to those rubber balls, we have a very different way of looking at them. We're not as attached to them. In fact, our businesses that we like to call our babies, we kind of get divorced from. And we're like, you're just this entity that I have created. You're not really a baby to me, right? Like, so you're going to evolve and change, and like, good for you. I'm excited. Maybe it's a company you build and then you sell it. Much easier to do when you're not so like, this is mine. It's a glass ball. Actually, unless you're a service-based provider, which frankly, we can also find somebody to take our work and go, I'm going to sell my practice to you, right? As a therapist, I can do that. We are important, but our businesses often are rubber. And so it's getting creative with what needs to get done and what doesn't need to get done. If for me, it's really important that I show up in an email every week or twice a week or whatever your schedule is, right? Maybe I simplify during a stressful time and it's just once a week because that's what I can do. I can sit down on a Saturday night and bulk write a lot of emails and schedule them out and then be done and let that go and not go back and go, well, how many unsubscribed and how many, no, let it go. If it's important to me to show up and I have the money for it, running ads, have that be going. If it's a podcast, hey, we're about to travel for 2 weeks. I've already told my editor, I'm going to bulk send you a bunch of episodes. You're going to edit them. I'm going to schedule it. I'm letting it go. I won't have the blog post done for those. I don't care. It's not the end of the world. Google, SEO, all them, they're not going to care. They're not like, she didn't show up. I don't care. So, and honestly, the newsletter will be like, whatever, my community will be like, okay. It's okay. It's okay for us not to always show up in the ways that we did because we're simplifying when life gets stressful. I love the story about the golden goose. I don't know, Josephine, if you know the golden goose story.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know the golden goose story, back in like medieval times, right? There's this golden goose and this man bought the golden goose and he was like, haha, now I'm going to get it laid a golden egg every day. And so he's like, now I'm going to have these golden eggs. And one day he got really like a bit too much in his ego and pride and was like, I'm going to cut open this goose and get all the eggs. Well, what happens? He cuts open the goose and it's blood and guts. Because he didn't realize by just taking care of the goose every day, one golden egg came out and he could have that the rest of his life. So we have to treat ourselves that way. We are the golden goose of our business. Even when you hire out, you are, you're that head person. You are that important piece. So if life is super stressful, if there's too much on your plate, then don't cut yourself open thinking like, well, let me just let it all out. No, get smart about what's important in your business. Let go of the rubber balls. They'll be bouncing. They'll come back. It's okay. And all the things that we're told constantly, this is why it's like so good to get off of social media as much as possible. You have to do this for consistency here and consistency here. No, I've taken many breaks. People were still waiting to hear, oh, I'm so glad you're back. Cool. Because I'd already built something. So the pause is okay. I call it the pregnant pause. It's kind of like when you have silence in a therapy session, right? Somebody says something, you just sit with it. It's like, what's building in this moment? We need this in our business too. Sometimes we take those several weeks off and there's this pause and something's growing in that. And then we come back and it's like full force and you can just show up differently. And that golden goose has got that egg every day because you took care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I really also believe that, if we don't, because the universe or whatever you believe in is giving you nudges. And when you're not listening to those, they give you like a like a big slap across the face.
Yep.
Like when my father passed away, or I've had a really scare myself a couple of years later, and things like that. And then it's so important to take, take a step back. Like now that all of these things that happened to me in May, I was like, what the heck is universe trying to tell me right now? Because
Mhm.
something is in that message. And exactly like you say, it's the answer then is not to push through, it's not to continue doing exactly what you've been doing, because then you can be certain that you will get an even bigger slap, right? So
Yeah.
my husband had been speaking about, changing a contract for a while. And then he said, well, and he didn't do it. And then he lost a big piece of that contract. So, things like if we don't take action on these things, universe kind of like gives us a little bit like shoving us in the right direction. And I think that is exactly like you say, is this a rubber ball or is this a glass ball? And what is
Yeah.
really important? And to take that time to really
Yes.
think these things through. So I love that those both analogies, the glass ball and the rubber ball and the golden goose, and to mix it up
Yeah.
all, like what is my golden goose and what are my rubber balls and what are my glass balls. I
Yes.
really like that. Yeah. So so I think we should round this off. What else, Katie? Where can people find you? We've already mentioned your homepage, but
Yeah.
let's give it again. Yeah.
Yeah, so of course, so katierössler.com, you see it on the screen, but you don't have to put the umlaut on the O. On Instagram, I'm pretty active at katie.rössler. On LinkedIn, you can find me. On YouTube, you can listen to my podcast, but my podcast plays on all podcast platforms. I also have 2 books called The New Face of Grief, you can find on any online bookstore, and Giving Birth to Motherhood for those who've had traumatic birth experiences and want to heal from that. As I've shared, I've worked in the grief space a lot and in the relationship space. And then for those of you who are really interested in kind of working on your relationship, I have what I love is called conversation cards. And they're just like conversation starters for those like, I don't know what to talk about. We've already talked about what we're doing this weekend and next vacation. These are like really good and they don't lead to fights. I've had many couples test them. They enjoy them. They're perfect for a date night. They're on your phone, so you can take them anywhere with you. So I'll make sure that Josephine has the link for those as well.
Oh, that is amazing. I really love that. Or when I did my coaching degree, we got kind of like these, because sometimes, when a coaching client comes and they're like, oh, I don't know what to talk about today, then they can pull a card too.
Yeah,
So I really love that idea to just, kickstart the conversation, because whatever is on their mind will actually pop up independently of what the card actually says. So I really like that
absolutely.
idea. So that's
Yes.
a brilliant idea. So yeah, please share that link with me,
Yeah.
and I will add it to the descriptions across, because we're streaming this to YouTube, LinkedIn,
Perfect.
and then also to my Facebook. So it has been a pleasure, Katie, to have you here as a guest today, and I really enjoy like knowing you, and I can't wait to see where we're both heading next.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Josephine.
Thank you. Bye. I will end the stream.